Hey everyone, what's up? This is Dr. Charlie Johnson, physical therapist. Hope you are well. Appreciate you checking out the channel. And awesome little lesson from a video I was watching last night, Home Alone, 1990. I was born in 1989, about the impact of fear on symptoms. Now, obviously, Kevin, the little boy who was stuck home alone, right, wasn't talking about fear and pain and all this. But do you recall from that video the time when whole family leaves for Paris, right? I was watching this last night with my daughter, and he goes down in the basement at some point, doing some laundry, and there's that old furnace in the basement, right? It's burning, it turns on, something like that, right? And it kind of takes on, it personifies almost like a character of its own, right? And it starts like kind of like in a spooky sort of way, laughing at Kevin, right? Ha, 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 right? And Kevin looks at this furnace, and I don't know if it was the first time, I think the first time he ran away, but at some point, he overcomes his fear and he looks at it and says, I'm not afraid of you, or something like that. He basically tells it off. He becomes indifferent to it, right? And then all of a sudden the thing shuts off and it leaves him alone. And this is just an awesome kind of representation and or analogy for you if you're stuck with some type of back, butt, and or sciatica pain. So real fast, my name is Dr. Charlie. I'm a physical therapist. I have my orthopedic board specialty. I teach people all around the world with back, butt, and sciatica problems how to overcome their pain using the power of their mind and movement as medicine. And so what this scene sort of tells us or shows us is that the fear that you experience can either fuel the pain that you experience, and or if you can become indifferent to your symptoms, neutral. Imagine a lion staring you in the face, but there's like 7 inches of glass in between you and the lion. You still might feel a little fearful, but you know there's no way that that thing can hurt me. And so Kevin becomes indifferent at some point in the movie to his fears. He says, I'm not afraid anymore. And again, the take home is that the more fearful you become of your pain, the more frustrated, the more worried, the more anxious, the more nervous you become about what's going on, the more that furnace, the pain that you're experiencing, lights up. And the more it keeps, keeps laughing at you, right? Haunting you, egging you on. And so you can't just ignore that thing either. Indifference versus ignorant to and or ignoring your pain. There's a difference there. In the first scene, I think in Home Alone, the first time Kevin confronts this furnace in his basement, he sees it, it starts egging him on, it starts freaking him out. He drops everything, runs upstairs. He runs from it. He flees from it. He says, all right, I'm going to look at you, but I'm out. I'm too afraid. So I'm going to run away. It's the equivalent of, right, somebody having the covers over their head and just peeking out, and then, somebody going up to the edge of the cliff and being like, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm working up the courage. Okay, that's it. I'm turning around. I'm going to go back to the car. I'm going to go back to my safe place. But you can never overcome your fear of anything if you're constantly avoidant of it. And so at that moment in the video, the second time around, when Kevin looks at the furnace and it starts to kind of egg him on, it starts to haunt him, it starts to get a little creepy, right, and that thing's moving on it. If you haven't watched that video in a while, I totally recommend it. The second time around, he didn't run from it. He confronted it. He actually looked at the furnace. He looked at the furnace and he said something to the effect of like, I'm not afraid of you. Or maybe he told it off. I can't remember exactly what happened in the video. But at the end of the day, what happened? It shut up. It stopped. Think of it like this. think of your pain like a bully, all right? I don't know about you, but I think everybody at some point gets bullied. I got bullied. I had actually, believe it or not, big ears when I was younger. Probably because I shaved most of the hair off my head, so it looked like my ears were bigger, right? I had a lisp. I couldn't say my S's. Still can't even say them correctly, I don't think. And I was always pretty short, right? Always a little bit behind, if you will, some of the other dudes in the class. And so I got bullied. And so if your pain is a bully, or if you want to think of it just in life with an actual bully like another person, if you go up to that bully when they're making fun of you and you throw punches and you kick and scream and you tell the teacher and you react to it, is that bully going to come back at you harder? Make more fun of you? Pick on you more? Or pick on you less? Now, if you're watching this, I think you all could agree that probably you're kind of fun to pick on, right? And if you're fun to pick on, then those bullies, those people are going to keep haunting you. They're going to go out of their way to make more fun of you and to ruin your day even more than they already are. All right? Now, if your pain is a bully, the more you react, the more you throw punches, the more fearful you become, the more you try to flee from it, like Kevin ran from the furnace, the more you try to ignore it. By the way, you don't ignore things that you're okay with. Go back to the line analogy. I know I got a lot of analogies here. My brain's kind of going wild. Go back to the line analogy. If you were walking around and you saw a big line, would you just ignore it? No, you wouldn't ignore it because you're not okay with it. In some way, shape, or form, you're either fearful or worried or concerned or angry or nervous or something. There's some reaction to that lion. Again, if you knew you were in a zoo and the lion was in a cage or behind 7 inches of glass, well then at the end of the day, you probably could ignore it. You wouldn't have to ignore it. You could just be indifferent to it. All right, and so I guess what I'm getting at here is there's a subtle difference. There's a subtle difference between ignoring something and becoming indifferent to it. All right. Ignoring something is, again, like an action that you're taking to, in some way, kind of avoid. Again, for whatever reason, fear, frustration, worry. You just don't like something about that person, so you're just ignoring them. You're ignoring their phone calls and their texts. But when it comes to pain, something that's within you, ignoring your pain reinforces psychologically to your mind that there's some threat there that needs to be ignored. You could try to ignore the bullies. Oh, here they come. I'm going to kind of just go this way. I'm just going to ignore them, right? They might perceive that as you're trying to flee from them. Yep, see, Charlie, he wants to get away from us. What does that do? Let's egg him on even more, right? But when you're indifferent to it, when you can stand up to something and just look at it, when the bullies are looking at you in the eye and you just look right back at them, maybe you wave, maybe you become friends with them, right? You say hi, no matter what they say to you, you're just neutral. You neutralize the reaction to that stimulus. And before you know it, you're no fun to pick on. As soon as Kevin, going back to Home Alone, just looked at the thing and just said, meh, you're not that scary. I'm not afraid of you anymore. It cut off the fuel to the furnace. Right? Not literally, but it stopped bothering him. All right? And so I really like that video, that movie. And I really like that analogy. And so ask yourself, how can you apply that same principle to your own pain and the pain that you're experiencing and what you're going through. So the next time you notice pain, rather than running from it, rather than trying to push it away or ignore it, and in doing so, reinforce that it's actually something dangerous or threatening or somehow unsafe, can you just observe it for what it is? It's a feeling. It's an experience. Cool thing is that experiences can change. And therefore, if you're in pain, no matter how long you've been in pain, some type of back, butt, and or sciatica problem, your pain can change because it's an experience, right? And so are you willing to look it in the eye, if you will, and say, I'm not afraid anymore? All right. Now, in all fairness, it's hard to say that. Easy for you to say, Charlie, you're walking in a park and you're totally safe. At least I think, right? There's no lions around. It takes a little bit of a process, and it definitely takes some understanding, because if every time you feel pain, you have this belief and this experience of, oh my gosh, the jelly's going outside the donut. My nerve is being pinched. That's my SI joint slipping out of place. Well, then you're not going to be able to tell yourself or look at that thing in the face and say, I'm not afraid anymore. Because that's a really freaky thought and experience. And so the process that we start to bring people through, who we work with privately, is understanding and really getting to the source of your symptoms. What's driving it? How do you know if you need to be afraid of your pain? How do you know if feeling some pain is okay? How do you know when you're doing something and it's causing too much pain and that's actually causing more of a problem? How do you know when you should be avoidant of things and or when you can feel okay, standing up to it, looking it square in the eyes and saying, I'm not afraid anymore? All right. Hopefully this is helpful. Let me know your thoughts. Is it possible for you to be indifferent to your pain? Is it possible that all the ignoring and all the fighting and all the running from your pain is actually reinforcing it? In my experience, yes. Let me know your thoughts about this video in the comments. Hopefully this was useful, and hopefully you go check out Home Alone if you haven't. Watch that scene with Kevin in the furnace and see how his reaction to that very scary thing changes his experience. Same furnace, same scary, ha 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 ha, but a totally different reaction, and he gets a totally different response. He overcomes his fears, and I would challenge you to do the same. Thanks everyone, chat soon.